What's going on, guys? It's Elias. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. We're looking at our Prelude here, and we're gonna finish up prep work here for the SCCA Time Trial at Thompson Speedway, Connecticut. So if you've been following along, you know that I put on the new wheels, the new tires. I put on the SPC ball joints. Let's take a quick peek. There she is. I got that extra negative camber, and these wheels and tires fit pretty well. We got a custom alignment with some toe out and front and back, just a tiny bit, and all that juicy negative camber. I've done a bunch of maintenance things, changed the oils and stuff. Nothing too exciting, but what we're going to do today is we're going to change the brake pads, and we're going to go ahead and bleed the brakes every time, or before you go to a track day or something. You should always bleed your brakes. Make sure there's no air in there. Make sure you don't lose your brakes as you race. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how I bleed the brakes, and I'm going to change the brake pads to what we have right here. They are Hawk DTC60. And I'll explain to you guys as I install it. I'll explain to you guys why I chose those pads instead of any other pad that I could have chosen. Let's get started. So taking a close look at my current setup, I have the Duralast GT. They do pretty well, actually. They do decently on track days. I've taken this car to one track day so far with this setup, and it did pretty well. It's just the problem is that these brake rotors are just so small for the weight of this car. This car weighs just about 3,000 pounds, a little bit less than that, about 2,900 pounds, and these rotors are just way too small for performance driving. So what happens is it generates a ton of heat. So in order to combat that, I want a brake pad that's capable of handling higher heat. Not that these aren't capable. These are actually really good brake pads. I used the Duralast GT on the Civic Type R to great effect, actually. The brake pads were awesome on the car because the front rotors were so large and they had a lot of ventilation. They never got too hot. Well, these do get too hot, so I'm gonna get DTC60 brake pads. Let me show you those. So these are the Hawk Performance Dtc60, and it's hard to see on video, but these are super metallic. And the more metal you have in these, the higher heat resistance you're going to be able to get. Now these are going to completely obliterate not just the rotor. So these rotors are going to be changed out. So I actually bought an extra set of rotors just in case these start cracking. But they're also going to create a metric ton of brake dust. If you're track racing, or if you're racing your car, you know you don't really care about that, but just fair warning, if you're going DTC60, expect a ton of brake dust. They also don't work that well when they're cold. So when they're super cold, they actually have very little friction compared to any other type of pad that's designed for the street. However, they are extremely heat resistant, and that's the whole point. The whole thing about brake pads is they all work in different temperature ranges. And the Duralast GT are designed for the street, but they can go up to much higher street and from track performance. They can go much higher temperatures than other street brake pads. This one does not work well regularly on the street. They need heat in them to start working properly, but once they've got a lot of heat in it, they have a ton of friction, so they're going to work really well, and they're going to hold on to that friction coefficient well above the heat range of any other street brake pad. So that's why I'm going to use these. So the battery on my camera died, and I couldn't show you guys how to bleed the brakes. It's very simple. I've covered it a bunch of times already from my Type R, so let's not cover it. Let's just take a look at how these brake pads hold up to extreme abuse, like you're about to see here. Now the key with time trials is we get to get a warm-up lap out of the gate. So we have one lap around, and then we get to do a fast lap right after. Also, as you can see here, I was drag racing a Miata and I was barely winning. So my engine's down on power. No surprise there. It's 240,000 miles. No big deal. So a few of the key points of the DTC60 Hawk pads is that while they do require heat to get going and to work well, they don't require an insane amount of heat. So if you have a slow car like a Prelude or a Miata, you're not required to brake a ton just to get good grip out of them. So if I was using the DTC70 or DTC80, I might be having some issues with not getting enough heat in the pads. But as it is, the Prelude does really well with the DTC60s, and it's allowing me to just concentrate on the driving and not have to worry about brake fade. Now, I do bleed the brakes, and I used ATE Type 2 brake fluid, which is inexpensive and really, really good. It's very heat resistant. I've been using it for quite a while, for a couple of years now, in the Type R and in the Prelude, as well as the S2000. It works really, really well. Now, as you saw there, coming down from the straightaway, I braked very hard. Didn't think about braking at all. Didn't think about brake fade. I'm just trying to get at the fastest times possible. This is a new track for me, Thompson. I've never been to Thompson Raceway before, so it was difficult for me to learn it. As it is, whenever you go to a new track, take it easy, learn the track, and make sure you're doing the right things in every corner. Get better every time you go around, and that's what I did. Now, I'm not sure if you heard it there, but these brake pads also do squeal a lot. So again, not really good for street use. These are very good for track use. But if you're going to use them on the street, they're going to squeal, they're not going to be up to temperature, they're going to destroy your brake rotors, and they will spew a ton of brake dust on your wheels. So I don't recommend them for the street. I highly recommend them for track usage. It's been really, really good. Let's go see the straightaway. At the end of the straightaway, I stomp on them again, no issues. So one of the noises that you're hearing when I stomp on the brake is the tire rubbing against the wheel liner. These are gigantic tires for this car, and yeah, it's gonna rub a little bit. I'm okay with that. The brake pads, however, you'll hear a little bit of squealing here and there, not a big deal. And by this point in my outing, in my session, the brake pads are doing phenomenally well. I'm not even thinking about brake fade at all. I'm just trying to get faster and faster lap times by carrying more and more speed into the corners. This is more a momentum car than a power car. Now, this track is not particularly hard on brake pads. There's no very, very long straightaways. There's only one decent straightaway. So I could have gotten away with Duralast GTs. They would have done just fine here. But for that added bit of comfort and stability, I'm glad I had the DTC60s with me. Let's see how they do down the straight again. Alright, so as you can see there, the brake pads, again, no issues at all. And these are very small brake rotors on this car, so the brake pads have to deal with a lot more heat than with bigger rotors, as is found in the Type R. So what am I going to be doing in the future? I'm going to be getting DTC60s for any vehicle that I own that I take to the track, like the Type R. I will be getting DTC60s all around for that car, and I'm going to be thankful to Hawk for providing these awesome pads. I did buy them myself. I'm not sponsored by anybody, but these are awesome pads, and I'm glad I bought them. And yeah, if you're gonna be tracking your car and you're a decent driver, or a semi-good driver, like I am, I recommend getting these brake pads. They've done really well for me, and I've been using DTC60 type pads for a couple of years now as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it was informative. If you have any questions on how the brake pads are still doing, I've done a few more track days and events on them, and they're still fine. But feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to leave a comment, leave a like, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.